But you were embarrassed to play the video?
Mm-hmm. I turned it off right when you walked in. And then I was like...
You said, oh, what sounds better, Craig Rochelle?
Yeah, I turned on the Craig Rochelle Leadership Podcast.
I knew it was the beginning. Bro, you ain't even started it. That is the fakest thing.
Well, I had it queued up. I just pressed play on
my
it. And then, yeah, that's the truth. So there's that.
Hey, be healed. The
Yeah,
truth will set
I
you
confess.
free.
Lord, I don't have to ask for forgiveness because I didn't sin. But, yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, man, dude, I'm so tired this morning. Right after services yesterday, Zane had his last flag football game.
Yeah.
Which Kendra and I made a pact that we would never do another Sunday afternoon sport.
Seems wise.
Yeah. And so, like, literally finish up, was here for a while after service, talking with people, praying with people. And then, like, we got Zane's jersey on, his cleats on in the office. And, I mean, we made it there in 60 seconds before his game started. And it was awesome. We had a blast. But then it was, like, right after that, it was just one thing after another yesterday. And so today I'm feeling it today.
Dude, I bet. I mean, those long Sundays are just different.
Yeah.
Well, and we had Fall Fest Saturday.
Yep.
And so all of that combines to, like, no weekend.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There were a lot of things. But,
yes.
Dude, we hit week 3 of the Vision series yesterday. Dude, I love when we talk about vision. I don't know, it just amps me up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been that way. Like, the pregame speeches before football games, like, all this stuff hypes me up. And so I'm sitting in there. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's get in the game. Let's go. But this week was less sermon. It was less, like, preachy.
Yeah.
You hit a lot more.
It's about 20 minutes of, like statistics and data that we can help impact in this city and state.
Which a lot of those statistics are wild to think about.
Yeah, it was shocking. Very shocking. It was even hard getting through. Like during first service, I read through them. Second service, I got choked up.
I could tell.
Reading the foster care statistics because there's just so many families in the room that I know their stories, people who've been impacted, adults that have been through the foster care system themselves and how it affected their story, and stories of redemption, but also stories of lots of pain and brokenness. And so, man, I looked up during reading some of those and locked eyes with somebody, and I was just like, I don't know if you could tell.
Yeah, it's like
I had to stop, and I was just like, man, I can't stop crying. I can't start crying right now. So I was like, oh, just breathe. We always tell Haven when she gets worked up, my daughter, we'll say, Kendra taught her this. She says, smell the flowers, blow out the birthday candles. So you take like a big breath in through your nose and then blow out the candles. And she does it. Dude, it's so funny. She'll be like,
that's how she blows out her candles.
It will be in public, and that's how we get her to like calm down. It's so funny.
Does it work?
Dude. It does. I was going to do that on stage, but
if you would have said, smell the flowers, blow out the
flowers. Blow out the birthday candles.
Because you can't hide that. It's not like you can pull your mic away right there. People are going to hear that.
Yeah, but it was a little bit of a different Sunday, but it was very needed. I feel like it was very necessary for where we're going and making sure people are informed.
Well, yeah, and you casted a lot of vision for that. And the big thing that we were hitting on this weekend was living on mission.
Mm-hmm.
And in New Life, I feel like we've used that language a lot. But for people outside of it or new to the church or who just don't understand what that means, what does it mean to live on, like, dumb it down. This is my first day here. Like, what does it mean to live on mission?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think that for everybody, we all have a mission as a Christ follower, and it's the Great Commission. And Jesus leaves the disciples with that, and he says, now this is what you're going to do. You're going to go, therefore, in all the world, make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach them to obey everything that I've commanded you. Surely I'll be with you to the very end of the age. We all have received that mission, which, I mean, really, that kind of summarizes everything. But I feel like, and yesterday, one of the big things that I wanted to be sure and give clarity on is, like, I'm going to say a lot of things today. I'm going to read a lot of statistics. I'm going to talk about a lot of opportunities going into 2025 and the remainder of this year. Don't get analysis paralysis, because there's going to be a ton of stuff. A lot of people will be tempted to walk out with like, well, that was a lot of stuff. I don't really know what to do with that. But we ended the service with praying, like, God, would you show us the part that we have to play in this? Yeah. And so I think everyone's individual, like, mission and mission field looks different. Like I spoke with a lawyer yesterday, a good friend of mine, and his mission field is way different than mine. We're both putting out fires just in different ways, but his mission field's way different. I've got friends that are police officers here. Their mission field is way different. We've got so many school faculty and teachers and stay-at-home moms and coaches and school administration. And I mean, I could go down the list. A couple dentists that are here. It's like their mission field looks different. I've got a buddy who works for the road department for the city. It's like,
shout out City Fayetteville.
Yeah, shout out. And his job looks way different. His mission field looks way different. Yeah. So it's like you have that mission field, and then you have the mission that God like calls people to, like to go out to serve. Like we did a homeless outreach on Saturday morning, but then also you've got people, their mission field is foster care or serving the widows in the church. Like there's so many things, but I feel like the Lord, like if you genuinely pray, God, break my heart for what breaks yours. One, it's a very simple prayer, but two, it's a very dangerous prayer. And I said yesterday, be very careful praying this prayer, because God will do it. And when he does it, now it's your time to respond. And so, man, I'm kind of getting choked up right now just thinking about when I knew that God was calling me into ministry and the mission field. And I just remember thinking, God, like, it's just so big. There's so many people. Like, what's the need, and what does this look like? And I remember I had so many questions, and it really, he simplified it, because I was currently working at the golf course in Conway. And I had just finished like doing my whole little Bible degree and all this stuff. And I thought I would just go straight into ministry, full-time like vocational ministry. But instead I spent another 18 months working at the golf course, mowing greens, weed eating, raking bunkers. And the Lord showed me in that season my mission field was my coworkers. And I worked with several guys who were not believers. I worked with guys who were just in really dark places. My boss, the superintendent, I could go down the list, and he said, this is the mission, and this is how you live on mission, is you wake up and you're going to get in that word, and you're going to spend time in prayer on your knees before me, and then you're going to go. And so I would do that every morning, man, in college. And dude, I just fell in love with reaching people, helping people, speaking life into people. And so I know that was a long answer for that, but that being on mission is everything, because if we're not on mission, and if we're just Christians, or we just give our lives to Christ and we stay in ankle deep water, man, what a terrible way to be examples of Christ, because Christ was always on mission. Yeah. Every miracle he did was an interruption. It felt like every time he was doing something, as he's on mission, he's on a journey, he's walking, but he always would stop, and his attitude and his posture always showed that he was just on mission. Always, he was always on mission. So, yeah.
You hit just talking about like that prayer, which is so like simple but dangerous, and break our heart for what breaks yours, Lord. Which I but there's so much that breaks the Lord's heart. So like, where do we? I mean, everything looks different for every person. Some people have that just passion and innate desire of like, this is what I'm focusing on right now, is foster care or homeless outreach or widows ministry. There's so many different avenues. How do you balance being passionate for it and then like sharing that passion with other people without, I guess, alienating other things that break the Lord's heart? Like, if you feel so passionate about it, don't you want other people to feel passionate about it?
Yeah. And that's why anytime I share about global missions, I always share about local outreach. And we had people sign up yesterday. I was blown away by how many people want to get involved with missions. And it's exciting because everybody's passion points are different. Everybody's calling is different. If you talk with missionaries who live overseas in third world countries, which we know people who do that, and if you even begin to talk about local outreach in Little Rock or Conway or Fayetteville or Pine Bluff or Hot Springs, any of these locations where we have churches, they're immediately going to come back to, yeah, but what about Haiti? What about and because that is where their heart is, and God has given them a burden for that place. And so the same thing is true here locally, whether it's serving widows, foster care ministry, going into prisons, dealing with people who are fresh out of prison, helping them acclimate into the world, getting them a job, training them, teaching them how to survive, how to be a good father, how to be a good husband, how to be a good employee. And then you've got like feeding programs where I think Arkansas's, I think it was number 1 or number 2 in the country in food insecurity, which there's 1 out of every 4 kids in the state of Arkansas doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, which is a terrible statistic, dude. And so it's like you read all these things, one of those things is going to grab your heart. And so the balance that I have learned just in my short time in pastoring is I just make everybody's Super Bowl my Super Bowl. And what I mean by that is like I just try to get passionate about whatever somebody's passionate about. And I just try to help them run in the lane that God has called them to run in. And so it's like, dude, I can get fired up. I mean, you know me well enough. I could get fired up just about anything. But as far as like my specific passion and calling, really it's to equip the saints for the work of service. Like, yes, I love all those topics. I love being involved in the nitty gritty of all those things. But my favorite thing is to learn someone's name, listen to their story, and then speak to their potential. And by doing that, it's usually getting someone in a lane where they feel called and they feel like I could be on mission here. And so that's kind of how I navigate that.
Yeah, I feel like I struggle with, especially friends that I have close to me, to just bring it. Like I have so many things the Lord has made me passionate about that I'm like, why isn't everybody else passionate about this? Yeah. It's like, it just makes so much sense to me. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's very narrow-minded of me. But I just want to bring my friends along because I feel that. And I feel like we've got a lot of people in our church who are the same way too.
Right.
And there's that balance of like, okay, is there grace in it of like, not everybody is gifted to go do foreign missions for their life. Not everyone is gifted to help with a widow's ministry, but everybody does have a part to play in what it means to live on mission.
Yep.
And so I love that on Sunday, you gave just this broad view of what really the next few months, 2025, looks like for us as a church. What would you say is like, man, we've got so many people who are fired up from Sunday. I got to talk to several people afterwards who were like, let us know when the prison ministry starts. Let us know when when missions start, like who are fired up about these things. What do you think is that easy, like first step for anybody who's like, man, it's time to live on mission?
Yeah. And I kind of joked about it in the message, but before God calls you, across the world, he typically will ask you to go across the street. And so I think it's so easy to be like, man, I'm supposed to go do all these like great, crazy, grand things. And I'm not diluting that. I think it's awesome. Or you could start with forgiving your brother, or like taking some cookies to the neighbor that you don't even know their name. Like you don't even know how many kids they have. You just know they drive a white Suburban or whatever. You could start by walking across the street from the church. There's neighborhoods all around us, and inviting a few people to church.
There's a Chiba Hut that needs saving.
Yeah, there's a Chiba Hut. I think that we get really hyper-focused on these big, big things for the Lord, and I'm not saying those are bad things. And I think we forget about the day-to-day practical, love your neighbor type stuff. And I think for anyone who's wanting to take this big step and a leap of faith, do it. But also, in doing so, God is probably going to ask you just to do some pretty small things that help build up to what he's calling you to do.
Do you think that's what stops a lot of people, is they're not willing to do those small things? They just want the big thing. You hit it a couple weeks ago talking about, like, when the vision God's given you in your heart and in your mind is not what's in your hands. Like, do you think that's what's stopping people? Is like, man, I want to go do global missions. Like, I'm supposed to be in the Dominican Republic. I'm supposed to be over there. And then they won't even evangelize to the person they just passed.
Yeah, I think that, I would say a lot of people I spend time with, if it's counseling or just hanging out and dreaming with people, they'll say, God's put this big dream in their heart. And I always use the example of a tree. They've got this big oak tree in their heart, but they've got this tiny little seed in their hand. And a lot of people will give up on the dream or the call or whatever it is because what's in their hand doesn't match what's in their heart. I've got this little seed or maybe this little sprout, but it doesn't look like what God put in here. And that's not what I think about all the time, because there's this, it's not matching up. And it's because, you have to be faithful with that seed for a long time before it looks like what God put in your heart. And I see a lot of people passing up really incredible opportunities from the Lord. And it's just little steps in watering that seed and planting other seeds, because they pass it up because it's not this big tree. It's not this big thing. And I just think that's dangerous. I'm guilty of that. I've passed up lots of opportunity because, I was thinking about other things when God was just like, no, be faithful with the little thing. Yeah. And so I always go back to family and friends. And I think family and friends are some of the hardest to minister to, but it's also some of the lowest hanging fruit. One, because you have relationship already, especially relatives, like they're your relatives. Yeah. And then, but your friends, it's low hanging fruit because you're in proximity to them. You know them. You know what triggers them. You know how to love them, how to serve them. You may know how they receive love, all of these things. And so I just think we work on the low hanging fruit situations, and then God is going to open doors for us to do whatever the big thing he's calling us to do, but being faithful with the little. And I think he always entrusts you with much.
You talked about the analysis paralysis, which is hard to say. I'd stutter over that one too. But of the, we hear all these things and we hear foster care, but we immediately think, oh, someone else can do that. Someone else has better resources than me to host some children. Or there's a widow's ministry, and we think, oh, someone else is going to cut their grass. Prison ministry, someone else will go meet them and help them because it's too difficult. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources with it. How do we get past that excuse and get to a place where we say, no, it's my time. I'm supposed to play a part?
Yeah. So we showed a video to kind of paint a picture of this. We'll actually play the video, right?
You can see right here, we've got this lady drove into the area that's flooded out, and she's screaming right now. I just called 911. Fire department is coming in, but she drove right into the flood waters. This is the Peachtree Creek, and it is rising at the moment. We've got this thing cresting at about 23 feet. It's going to go up a little bit more. This, by the way, we had the video of the high water rescues earlier. That was about a mile away from this spot where I am right now. So people are still driving around and seeing all these floodwaters and still going around the barriers of getting in. So I am patiently waiting for 911 to come. They said the fire department was coming from Atlanta. I'm in North Atlanta right now on the corner of Northside Street, Northside Drive. It's a pretty big populated area right here. She is still screaming, but we got you. We got you. 911, they're coming. You're good. You're good. Man, it's a situation. We will get back to you in a little bit. I'm going to go see if I can help this lady out a little bit more, you guys. I'll be back.
And he did. That's Fox meteorologist Bob Van Dillen. Watch as he wades through the water with the woman on his back. So he went to get her. He spoke to Fox and Friends after the rescue, though, detailing
and obviously we honor the weatherman for going and rescuing, but we joked about on Sunday, like he took a little bit too long. And he was yelling, "You're good, you're good," or and he was saying we called 911.
Helps on the way.
Helps on the way. Helps on the way. And you could tell there was this moment because he kept turning around looking at her, and he was like trying to report, and then he would turn around. This lady is literally about to drown. and he is just talking about helping her. He's not going and doing it. And also, I think it's awesome that he went and helped her. But it's just, I saw that video and I was like, man, this is a picture of the church many times, even for me, because I have that mentality of, well, somebody else will do it. A professional will do it. Someone who's more qualified will do it. I was reminded of this verse in Matthew 25. It says, Jesus, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. It says, then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison to go visit you? And the king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. So it's like, that's a humbling reminder that, I mean, yeah, this is for other people, but this is for the Lord, period. And so, like, I think the mentality of, oh, somebody else will get to that. I mean, yeah, that could be partially true. God may call someone else to do that. But if God is prompting you to do something, do it. You'll never regret being obedient to God, ever. And I know in my life, I've never regretted being obedient to God. And I just think about that weatherman turning around. He's like, you're good. And it's like, no, she's actually not good. Her car's filling up with water. It's at the window, and she's screaming because she's about to die. And I just think that's the state of the world. There are people who are drowning in sin. There are people who are drowning in their situation and circumstances. And so often people, Christians, the church, even myself at times, is like, you're good. Someone else will help you. It's like, no, God has equipped us and resourced us and called us to help. It's just finding out where are we supposed to play a part. And so that is the call for the church. It's kind of like the wake-up call, to wake up and smell the coffee for the church. I think it helped people wake up on Sunday. Hey, thank you guys for listening. And man, be sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or to download the podcast. Share it with a friend if you think this would be helpful for somebody else. We also share pieces of this on our social media on Facebook and Instagram, NLC Fayetteville. Thank you guys for listening. We love you. Have a good week.